That's a great segue into my next question. It's a line of questioning that Councillor Pincott sort of raised with you. And I just want to sort of preface my remarks with saying I'm very happy with the work that's being done out of transportation. I think you guys are leading the transformation of our city, and I'm very proud to be working with you. Having said that, you know, some of the work that we're doing in terms of putting in complete streets, in terms of Inglewood's going to be the recipient of the first Streetscape Master Plan coming out of the Main Streets program. Business interruption's a big one, and we had a really sort of rough go on 61st Avenue, and I'm freaking out about business interruption in Inglewood coming out of that. Maybe we want to talk about some lessons learned there and how we look to improve.
Yeah. You know, I wouldn't mind, Julie, I know has a perfect answer for you on this, but I'm going to take this one on because this is important. And this is
it is important. And maybe just before you answer, Mr. Logan, in the interest of saving time, because that was actually one of the questions I had, let me broaden the context of Councillor Carra's question a little bit. And you and I have discussed this before. There's two things at play here, I think, and I think the 61st Avenue example is a perfect example of how things can go horribly wrong. And so thing number one at play is the very specific question that Councillor Carra is asking, which is, do we take responsibility for when our work goes bad and it really badly inconveniences people, it really hurts businesses, and so on? The second is a broader question that I'd love your reflection on, which you and I have talked about before, which is, it seems that in cases like this, and the 61st Avenue one is another good case of this, we see the people who are complaining as obstacles to go through, or things that are preventing us from doing our work. And I need to see an attitudinal change across the corporation, but largely in transportation, that says these are actually the people for whom we're doing the work. We're doing it to make their lives better. They are not actually obstacles in the path to getting the perfect engineering solution. And I wonder if we've thought through how we can permeate that culture through the organization.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a perfect example of how we have to change what we are doing and how we are doing it as a response to our current economic conditions. That's the catalyst. I'll use the 61st Avenue example. This is 61st Avenue South, just east of McLeod Trail. We are doing a full depth reclamation and a reconstruction of that roadway to improve the connection from the LRT station to the mall. As a result of this project, we have interrupted access to the local businesses, we have disrupted pedestrian access, we have disrupted transit access, and we have delayed motorists. So the complainers, Your Worship, fall into multiple different categories. And we have to try to be responsive to all of them. So where the seed change comes in, I think right now, is recognizing that the impact that we have on the local businesses in these fragile economic times can create literally a fatal blow, potentially, to a business. And as a result, we have to reprogram our own thinking at the project management level. And Julie pointed out, Ms. Radke pointed out in her earlier comments that the key is planning the project much more thoughtfully and getting people more coordinated before we start. So here's how we're doing things differently, Your Worship. On 17th Avenue Southwest, we're doing a full reconstruction from Stampede Grounds all the way west over to 14th Street. This project's going to take 3 years to do. It's going to involve reconstructing the road right down to the deep utilities from one property line to the other. We're going to have a massive impact on the businesses along that street. So we are making a commitment to those businesses to coordinate with them better. And when we do run into an unscheduled delay, and you pointed this out very aptly to me, these things happen. We run into a utility that isn't on the plan. What we need to think about doing as second nature is going and talking to the businesses and saying, hey, we've run into something, it's an unexpected delay, we apologize, we're dealing with it as quickly as we can. Is there something that we can do for you while we're doing this? We didn't do that, and we need to do that. We need to have somebody on the street that they can connect with, and that person needs to have the right attitude. And some, in the case of 17th Avenue, we're exploring having a storefront right on the street and have staff there so that the businesses can contact them. We had a great example in Portland. Councillor Keating or Councillor Farrell might recall the business owner who couldn't get the meat to their front door. Do you remember that story? So the front end loader operator from the project actually put their product on the front end loader and got it to the store, got it to the restaurant. I mean, that's the kind of cooperation and the care for business that we have to demonstrate. Director Thompson and myself have made a commitment to, to yourself and to council that we will make a step in a completely different direction than what we have. It is challenging. It is not easy. There is businesses, there are pedestrians, there are motorists, there's all sorts of different things that we have to balance, but at least we have to do the best possible job that we can.
So, Your Worship, I will just add that, that message has definitely been carried forward to our project management staff at TI specifically, that we do need to work with those area businesses, and we need to make sure that everything from the communication of, things that we find, interruptions, all of that is part of our day-to-day business. And we also work closely with our communications team to make sure that they're all tied in with it, and we're all working together to make sure that that's happening.
Great. The only nuance I would add to everything Mr. Logan said, which sounds really good, is there was a very specific issue on 61st Avenue, which I just want to highlight in case it ever happens again with any of your projects. And that issue was something came up and it required investigation. And as a net result, no work happened for weeks on end. And yet no one, which is fine, you had to figure out what was going on. And I had a very similar case, if the utilities guys are still listening, with someone who told me, across the street from my place, they were digging up doing a pipe fix, and they realized that the valve was a non-standard valve and they had to wait for a part. And that happens. But in both of those cases, no work was actually going on, but the people were still inconvenienced. So no one actually thought, well, if it's going to be a few weeks, should we fill in the hole? Should we make a plywood sidewalk? Should we find alternative pedestrian stuff? Instead, people just saw a construction zone with no work going on. And by the way, in the case of the utilities, the tiny thing with the valve, they saw no work going on, and 5 guys who literally sat there for 5 days and texted because there was nothing else for them to do. So we need to think about broadly, number one, how better we manage unplanned interruptions or delays, and number two, about how we mitigate the results of those unplanned things, even if it causes more problems to our projects.
Your Worship, your point is well taken. And certainly the other thing that we will do, and we do is work with our contractor as a partner to make sure that when these things come up, we have that communication with them as well, and work out a solution, like you say, what is the scenario, what are the things that we could do, what should we be doing there, and that's part of the process as well, and something that we will be working hard on our upcoming projects.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor
Your
Carra.
Worship, just before they go on, Mac mentioned that I think the thing that we've talking about that's new to this is a relationship manager who's actually present and on the street, who walks that street every day to see what the problems are, just like you would if you showed up and said there was something wrong here that needed to be fixed, who has the ability to inform people immediately, that knows the businesses and the people that live on that street, so they can actually have that conversation with a real live person in real time. And I think that's, Mac, am I correct in terms of you pioneering something like that on 17th?
Yes, we were looking at putting the right staff member into the person that has that positive attitude and can-do, fix-it kind of person.
And then, not to get lost in all of this, but this is a broader policy question we're not going to solve today, but it's the thing that Councillor Carra initially raised in his question, which is we need to think about what financial responsibility we have, if any, to the people whose businesses we're badly disrupting.
Actually, thank you, Worship. I did not answer that. As Council may or may not know, if we have a impact on business that is unavoidable, we do not compensate businesses for that impact. Center Street North, when we rebuilt the Center Street Bridge, was a case in point where we knew that we were going to impact the traffic down that street, but we were doing necessary work and we were doing it as expeditiously as possible. We don't cover business loss in that case. So that, just wanted to add that point, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Carra.
Well, I really appreciate the answer on that. And I will just sort of note my, I think, sort of entry into anything resembling public life or connection with the city had to do with the construction of the Inglewood Flood Protection Berm, which was a multi-year project that really worked. It kept the water out of Inglewood. It's the only proven flood defense in the city. It was overseen by an amazing public servant who was exactly that person who walked the ground. His name was Ole Tenold, and he was a brilliant kind of front face for the city. And I think that that's the kind of sort of person in the neighborhood, personality that we would love to see broadly representing the city in all of the places where we front onto citizen life.